Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's the start of January and it's still very cold, but I get asked quite a bit, what can I sow in January? So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the plants that you can still grow and sow in January. The way I'm going to do this video is I'm going to split it into three sections. So those plants that are very safe to grow, those plants that you'll have to grow under cover, and those plants that you'll have to be really careful with. So keep watching and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing. So what I've got here is I've got my garlic planted, and now even though it's January, it's still a good time to plant garlic. I planted garlic last January around this time, maybe a little bit later, and I still got a good crop from it. So what I say is any time that the ground's not frozen, get your garlic planted straight outside up until about the end of February-ish. So up until about the end of February-ish, keep planting your garlic, no problem at all. I planted this bed, and I planted this bed over here on my right, and this is the bed that I did with the garlic covered with cardboard. So if you haven't seen that video, do go and check it out. So this is two of my beds with garlic. I've still got quite a bit of garlic to plant, probably another bed about this size, at least, if not another two. So no problem at all. January, February, keep planting your garlic, no problem at all. So if your ground's a little bit too hard and it's frozen and it's not likely to defrost till March, then what's a good trick for you to do is take some seed trays and plant them into the seed trays, and then once the ground thaws in March, pop the live plant into place. So that's a little trick that you can do. But garlic does need that cold, and this cold weather and this freeze is only doing the garlic better. It's going to be doing good for the garlic, so no problem at all. So what I'm doing is I've got some chicken compost. I mean, this chicken compost is mixed a lot with wood chips, so it's quite rough. That's why you've not seen me add the wood chips to the bottom. Now is I'm going to add a little bit of chicken manure from the bedding to the pile, and so a little bit of chicken manure with the bedding into the potato buckets, and I'm going to plant some potatoes. I'm just going to stick a couple of potatoes in. I mean, the red ones are potatoes that I've saved myself, and these white ones are just Maris Piper, but they're shop bought potatoes. And these red ones are ones that we've dug up ourselves, and they're started to sprout. I've not been able to get my seed potato yet, so I'm just planting these. So let's get these started. Potatoes can be quite tender, so if they do get frost on the foliage, they will die back. That's why I brought them into the greenhouse. Like I mentioned in my how long does it take to grow potatoes in buckets video, I said that one of the advantages of growing in these black buckets is that you can keep them indoors and you can get them started earlier. So that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So we've got them in the buckets, we've got them in the compost, and we're just going to leave them in the greenhouse and let them grow and under this protection. And then when it's safe to do so, we'll move them outside and we'll just leave them protected out there. Once the foliage has come up, it'll probably be by mid-February that the plants are growing. By early March, we'll move these buckets outside when we're starting to fill the greenhouse up a bit more. So for now, these guys can stay in here under protection. So another thing that you can plant now, and it's a good time for you to plant, is to plant onions from seed. And this is what I've got here. So I'm using the heat generated off my hotbed to get my onions started a little bit earlier. But even if you didn't have a hotbed or any sort of heat source, you could still start onions from seed. I'll show you my other greenhouse where I've got onions growing from seed without any heat at all. So over there we've got some stir-on onions that were overwintering. We started those sort of late December, and the two trays next to them, they were started a couple of days ago. So we've got some Japanese senchu onions in in the other greenhouse that I showed you on the top of the hotbed, and we've got these onions in here that we can grow completely unaided, unnecessary of any heat at all. So you can get your onions started absolutely fine, not a problem at all. So another one that you can actually plant are broad beans. Now what I've got here are Karamazin, I think that's what they're called, the variety, and I've got some Whitkeim as well. Normally what I do with broad beans is in the autumn time is towards end of October, November time, I'll plant them directly into the soil. But this year I missed the boat on that, so, and I was a little bit late. So in December, what I did was I planted some broad beans into pots. So they're popping their little heads up to say hello. And underneath my potting bench, I've got another set of broad beans that I planted a few days ago. Once they get established to about 6 inches tall, I'll plant them into their final position. Hopefully that'll get us towards the end of February. By the time they get going, and we'll get them planted into their final position, and they can grow on and give us a nice early crop. That's one of the advantages of planting broad beans so early. If you sow your broad beans in autumn or winter, then one of the advantages is that they get established, you get an early harvest of broad beans, and you can avoid problems with blackfly. But I do a lot of interplanting, so I'm quite good with pest control outside anyway, so that's one of the things that you can do there. There's actually another couple of seeds that I've got here. One that I'm going to plant is cauliflowers. I mean, I don't grow a lot of cauliflowers, but now is a good time to get your cauliflowers in the ground, so we're going to get those into the ground and we're going to get those started. And another little one that I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to keep it in the greenhouse and I'm going to do a sowing of carrots. So this is just sifted old compost. It hasn't got a lot of nutrition in. I'm not going to do many sowings of carrots. What I normally do is I save my carrot sowings till about February, March time. So these are pelleted seeds, so they're a little bit easier to handle and they're a little bit easier to sow. So I'm not going to plant many seeds at the moment. I'm just going to plant enough to satisfy my itchy fingers. So I think that's okay for this time. And again, I'm just going to give it a gentle cover with some of this compost, and hopefully they should start germinating soonish. Again, with this one, this is another one that I'm going to save for the greenhouse, and it's going to stay in here and it's going to stay under protection. An important thing for you to do is make sure with all your seed trays, when you're using them for especially these kind of early germinations, give them a good scrub and give them a good clean. So one of the things that you've got to be careful of with early germ sowings of plants that are a little bit tender are you don't want to spread any sort of bacterial infection over to them. So giving them a good scrub, especially when you're recycling or reusing old seeding trays, it's good to make sure they're nice and clean before you start. So I've had this soil in the house now for about a week, and I've had it sat next to the radiator in the kitchen, so it's a little bit warmer than it would have been if it was from outside. And I deliberately did that because when I want to start planting into this, I want the soil to be as warm as possible or close to temperature so it doesn't take as much effort to warm it up on the propagator. And I want to say a thank you while I'm here to Knitting for sending me a couple of heated seed mats, which was really kind of him. Thank you very much for that. Jazakallah khair. So you've already seen me planting my chilies, and that's one that you really need to get planting this month because it really needs that long growing season. So we planted a few at the end of last month, right at the very end of last month, and we're going to continue to plant some more this month. I'm waiting for some more seeds to arrive before I can get on with the rest of my seed sowing for my chilies. You've already seen me plant some of my chilies, so go and check that video out. I'll leave a link for it up here. And another one that's quite safe to plant now are lettuce, and the one that I'm going to plant is a red romaine, and it's a cos lettuce, so it should be quite safe to plant now. So I'll just open this up and I'll sow this one quite thinly. And this one is another one that I'd be quite confident with in leaving it in the greenhouse, in a cold greenhouse outside. Yeah, not a problem. I'd put it out there, absolutely fine. One thing that you want to be careful of when you're sowing in doing these winter sowings is try and sow quite thinly. So the way I plant these ones is I try to keep, the way I'm trying to do it is try and keep about one seed apart. If I'm dropping two, then that's fine. They're going to just grow together as one plant. I'll treat them as one plant. So what I'll do with these, I'll transfer them outside and I'll put them on an unheated greenhouse, and they'll be quite slow to germinate, but they will germinate and they will grow, and it'll just give you that couple of weeks head start on everything else. Another one, now this is an advisory. Like the chilies, it's one that you need to be quite careful of growing at this time of year. And these are tomatoes. It's the 3rd of January at the moment. I'll probably go all out on planting tomatoes towards the 15th of January, towards the middle of the month, towards the end of the month. I'll go ahead and I'll plant all my tomatoes. Right now I'm just going to start planting a couple. I'll plant a couple this week and I'll plant another couple in a few days time, as my heated propagators become, as they become free. So this variety is a variety called Outdoor Girl, and it's an early maturing tomato. So these, let's get these planted. And I'm going straight from the seed packet of these because tomatoes are very, I mean, they don't need much encouragement to germinate. A little bit of warmth and they're quite well away. So I'm not going to bother trying to get these soaking in any sorts of solutions beforehand. Tomatoes are very good to germinate. I don't think you need to soak these at all. So we'll get these planted. It's a variety that I've actually never grown before, so we'll see what they're like. But they're supposed to be, because they're an early fruiting variety, they're suitable for outdoor growing conditions. What I will do with these is I will stick these on a heat mat, and I'll get these to germinate. With plants like tomatoes, it's really good to grow them early. I mean, one of the things that people will warn you about at the moment is that tomatoes will become leggy, and that's very much a possibility. So if you're planting at the beginning of January and you've got some supplemental lighting, do use that, and that will really help the plants to come on a little bit. But if you haven't got that supplemental lighting, wait till the middle of the month, wait till later on in the month before you sow them. I mean, with tomatoes it's quite easy. Even if a plant does get a little bit leggy, you've got some options to try and remedy that. One is you can just plant the plant deep. I mean, tomatoes will send out roots all the way up the stalks. You can just plant the plant deep, and then that way the tomato will carry on growing from everything above ground. So you can fix that. Or what you can do is wait for the suckers to come out of the tomato and just take those suckers and plant them, and you've got a head start on the tomato already. So that's a free way of making tomato plants, and you'll really do well with that method, I think. And that's the thing that I'm going to do quite a bit if I get leggy plants. But with sowing tomatoes at this time of year, you're going to have to give them a nice sunny windowsill. You're going to have to give them a little bit of heat to get them started, and then potentially some supplemental light. If you go for a sowing towards the end of January, by the time they germinate, it'll be second week of February. At that time the days are getting longer, and they're going to be fine. So that's my tomatoes, that's my lettuces. I'm going to carry on with my sowings of chilies as the new seeds arrive, because I want some nice hot peppers this year. Other ones that you can also carry on with, Chinese cabbages, so things like pak choy, bok choy. These are really good. Komatsumi, these are really good plants to plant at this time of the year. It's perfectly fine, especially if you're in a greenhouse, unheated greenhouse, not a problem at all. I'm going to get some of those planted when I can find my seeds. But the other ones that I'm going to carry on planting with is I'm going to continue planting my chilies as the seeds arrive, and I get them on the heated propagator and get them germinating. You need to get those, you really need to get those started early, just so you can get some ripe chilies by the end of the season. Another one, aubergines. Get your aubergines planted. If you like growing aubergines, I find the long or the small variety of aubergine do better. You can try looking for something like that. Italian long purple is a nice one that I had a lot of success with last year. Right now, they're the only ones that I'm going to sow. We'll keep doing a little bit of sowing, especially with the lettuces, every couple of weeks now till the end of summer pretty much. I think that's a good few seeds planted for us. It's got me out of that little itchy bug, so I'm going to leave it there for this one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.